Hello and welcome to the Formula Racing League. We are here for some F2 action here at the Spa-Francorchamps circuit in Belgium. The penultimate round takes us here to Spa, where we could see the championship decided, or it could go down to the last round in Baku next week. This is the Tier 2 category, and whilst we wait for drivers to have their setups ready for both qualifying and race, run down on the championship standings as Statistic King has a 39-point lead over Winfield and 55 in front of Vintage. So if he was to clinch the championship today, he would need to be more than 48 points in front in order to wrap it up here tonight. So two of the drivers are ready to go out for qualifying. It's a one-shot qualifying this, followed by a 50% feature race, and then a 50% sprint race that follows. Do feel free to get involved in the conversation as well, folks. As you can see there, there's the high-tech going wide. That's Killer J. We'll come away from and go to Statistic King, who has kept it clean so far on his lap. He's currently behind Winfield by the Delta into Les Combes. Going down into what looks like Bruxelles. This is Pawn as Statistic King goes through. And he's got the chicane of Fanya, who wants to nail the apex very well around here. Takes it very smoothly through this part of the course. And he comes down towards Stavolo. And he's got the long drive through Blanchimont and then the bus stop chicane as the last obstacle before the end of this 7-kilometre circuit. So into the last turn, Statistic King crossing over the line, and it'll be a 1 minute 56.6. He starts second on the grid behind Winfield, with Rune third, Liverpool Fan fourth, ahead of Mielios, Wild Dog, Vintage, The Hound, Rizzlesticks. Podge makes up the top 10. I must say Podge makes up the top 10, he's actually been disqualified from that session. So here's a rundown on the grid. Winfield on pole, getting the 4 championship points, which is crucial for the championship. Statistic King second, ahead of Rune, then it's Liverpool Fan, ahead of Mielios, Wild Dog in 6th, Vintage 7th, The Hound 8th, Fizzlesticks 9th, Podge makes up the top 10, then it's Lucky Boff, then it's Scour's Cookie, Redstone Derp, SRF Han, and Killer J. 15 drivers making up the grid for the race. There may be one or two more that joins in for both the feature and sprint races. Only time will tell. So, Statistic King has got a fan cheering him on tonight, Kevin, saying go on Statistic King. Double race win for him tonight. Well, it's possible. Just looking at the results of last week, Vintage won the feature race and then Statistic won the sprint race in Monaco. Statistic King with other victories He's picked up, it was on round 7. Another one in round 6. Then one in round 4. Round 3 as well. Round 2. And that's that. So I think that's 5 or 6 wins that Statistic King has picked up so far this season. So we're just waiting for drivers to complete their race strategies, and we'll go on to the formation lap. We'll find out who is starting on whatever tyres. It's the softs and the mediums the drivers will be using in the feature race. Winfield, so the only drivers starting on the mediums are Statistic King and Rizzlesticks. The others are all starting on the softs. So Statistic King going on the alternate strategy. 15 drivers will take part in the feature race. Winfield looking to convert this into the race win. He's in desperate need of a good result here. He needs to get every point he can to take the fight to Baku next week. And I'm sure there is still one more round to go after this. Being confirmed by Winfield taking the field round the formation lap. Through Campus and then Stavelo. So Winfield takes the field round to the grid. The Statistic King behind him, ahead of Rune. Then it's Liverpool Fan, followed by Mielios. Wild Dog Vintage making up 6th and 7th. Then it's the Hound, Bristol 6 and Podge on row 5. Lucky Boff, Scouse Cookie, row 6, Redstone Dirt and Han on row 7. And then we'll wait for Killer J to take up 15th place on the grid. And then we'll get this 13 lap feature race underway here at Spa. So the 5 lights come on then. Here we go. It's lights out and away we go for the F2 feature race. And Winfield gets off the line reasonably well. Rune getting ahead of Statistic King at the start, looking for a move round the outside of Winfield into La Source, but Winfield stays in front. So it's Rune in second place ahead of Statistic King has dropped back. One of the Charusas has gone into the wall. Looks like Lucky Boff has got in there. So Winfield leads ahead. It's Rune in second. Then it's Statistic King third. Then we've got the Campos of Wild Dog in fourth ahead of Vintage. They've got Liverpool Fan and someone else. We've got another collision. And it looks like the Hound and Podge have gone. Oh, there's another coming together with Scouse Cookie in the wall. Scouse Cookie's in the wall. He's got damage to his front wing, and we've got a safety car already. Or a virtual safety car, I should say. 2 drivers have been penalised so far. Scouse Cookie is one of them, and Podge is the other, who's been given a drive-through for jumping the start. So clearly got away before the lights had extinguished. But Winfield getting the jump he needed ahead of Rune. Sister King third, and it's Wild Dog fourth. Vintage in fifth, had a Liverpool fan, Killer J, who's made up good ground from 15th on the grid to find himself up there in seventh. But there are plenty of drivers who are in need of repairs at the end of the site. We're back on the way again. So Winfield in front of Room, who gives chase. So they come through Fanya and into Campus. Room may be able to get into the slipstream of the Pramer and get in front. Not by the end of the lap. There's no DRS for the first 2 laps of the race. And drivers do have to take a mandatory pit stop in this one, but they cannot make that mandatory stop until the end of lap 3. So those who are without front wings, I think we're going to need to come into the pits without, to be honest with you. I think one of the dams has got no front wing to his car. That'll be Scouse Cookie, and Rizzlesticks has also got damage. So crossing line at the end of lap 1, Winfield is in front, goes wide into La Source. Room got the better line through there. He might be able to get good speed coming out onto the Camel Straight. Got 4 drivers in the pits right now. Podge is one of them, ahead of it's Lucky Buff, Scouse Cookie, and Rizzlesticks, who are also in. It says that it's lap 3, but it's not, it's lap 2. There's no DRS for the first 2 laps, as I've already mentioned. And we've got a move between Vintage and Liverpool Fan, tussling over what looks like 5th position. Liverpool Fan getting down the inside of Vintage, and he goes up into that position. So Liverpool Fan up to 5th, Vintage 6th, Redstone Dirt going down the inside into Bruxelles. And he goes through, or so he thought. And that's 6th place for the Dams driver. Nice move. Nielio's pushing on in the HWA. And we've got the drivers who've just been in the pits coming back out on a new set of tyres. Now, is that rain on the horizon? Yes, it is. So, in fact, the rain is coming down on the circuit. We're only on lap 2. So, if you're the race leader... Well, the thing is, we're only on lap 2 at the moment. You can't make your mandatory stop until the end of lap 3. So, Winfield's going to have to stay out. His tyres will be going off at such an early stage as the rain continues to come down. So Hound in 9th place, Han ahead of Mielios, then Podge in 12th ahead of Rizzlesticks, Scouse Cookie and Lucky Boff. Winfield looking to pull away from Rune as they make the climb up to through Eau Rouge and then through Radion. This is the Camel Straight. There's Vintage in 7th. The drivers will be beginning to feel these conditions, considering that it takes 2 minutes to do a lap in these cars. Being on the right tyres at the right time will be ever so crucial. But the thing is, in F2, there's no intermediate tyre. It's either the slicks or the full wets. So it could be that the drivers are going to have to manage being on the slicks until he gets to that crossover point where wets are needed. Here's Killer J, and Lucky Boff is back in the pits. Not having a good race so far. So Winfield coming through with Room behind. And they're coming around to complete lap 3. Now those, particularly the starters on the softs, can make their mandatory pit stops at the end of this lap. We've got someone who's spun at the bus stop chicane, that's the Hound. And he decides to carry on with the damage. He's got to his front wing. I would have come into the pits, to be honest with you. Unless he's staying out until the weather the weather continues to deteriorate. They're coming down towards Eau Rouge. Vintage looking to get by the high-tech. Killer J almost running wide onto the curves, to be honest with you. And we've got a battle for third place as Wild Dog continues to hound down the ART of Statistic King. Now as it stands with the championship standings as they are, the gap would come down to 23 points. Now, if this was to be the last round of the season, Statistic King would be champion of the F2 Tier 2 category. Just need some confirmation to say that it's true, unless there is still a round in Baku coming next week. That will wrap up the championship. And Vessel 6 getting a time penalty now as well. He's running in 14th position behind Scouse Cricket. Now Podge has got a 3-second time penalty. Rune continuing to close in on Winfield. These two need to take it steady. I think we will see the wet tyres being used in this race, but those who have started on the softs will very much be beginning to struggle at this point in the race now. And Rizzle Sticks has now been given a 10-second time penalty for corner cutting. This race going from bad to worse at the moment. This may as well keep going unless this race proves to be an attrition for the drivers. Louisville fan in the pits for Carlin. Now what tyres is he going to go on? Is he going to go on the full wets? He is, you know. And the Hound is in likewise. He's in need of a front wing as well as the UNI Virtuoso driver. So yes, he's going on to the wet compound. Here's Vintage looking to get past Killer J for 6th position. Side by side into Lacom. But Vintage stays behind. Now we'll be interested to see if those on the wet tyres are finding more time than those on the slicks. The Liverpool fan's got some clear track ahead of him. Now, will the leaders consider pitting in at the end of this lap? Rizzle 6 has been given another time penalty. And he's back in the pits and he's out of the race. So no points for Rizzle Sticks in this race. Okay, I've just seen confirmation that this is the last round for Tier 2 tonight, so it is the season finale. Thank you, Rosie, for giving me that information. So as it stands, with Winfield leading, and with the fastest lap to his name, Mr. King's 3rd place would be enough for him to clinch the championship in this race. But it's not over yet. Not over yet by any means. As the top 2 come in, Winfield and Rune. Statistic King stays out on his mediums. He'll be looking to stretch these tyres out until the crossover point as to when it is time to go onto the wet tyres. Killer J also in for high tech. But Rune stays out on dry tyres. Winfield's gone back out on wets. So Winfield will exit the pits ahead of him. Emilio's has been given a time penalty for speeding in the pit lane. A few drivers getting caught out now. Now, those on the wet tyres The highest is Winfield in 6th place. It's just going past Han now. You can see he's got more grip on those than Han has on the slicks. Uses DRS to his aid. DRS has not been disabled yet. I don't think it'll be too long before Roon gets by the Carlin driver as well. He goes through up to 6th place. Now this will be an interesting battle because Roon's still on dries, Winfield is on wets. Now I can imagine Statistic King will stretch those medians as far as he can. So Statistic King looking to extend the gap. As you can see, Roon all over the back of Winfield, side by side as they come into Fanya. It's wets versus dries, and it's the dry compound that Roon is on that sees him take the upper hand on Winfield for now at least. We've got an instant set to 2. Is that Lucky Boff who's had a spin? I wonder if he's reset the car back onto the track as well. That may need to be looked at by the stewards. There is a suspicion he may have reset the car back onto the circuit. As Wild Dog comes in, and it's wet tyres for him. What about Redstone Derp? Is he going to full wets? The answer is yes, he is. And Vintage doing the same. So the only driver who's come into the pits during the mandatory pit stop window to still go back out on slicks is Roon in 2nd place. He's pulling away from Winfield at this point. But will he have the advantage by the end of this race? I'm not so sure if he will. And someone else has gone for a spin. It's Podge, who's really struggling at the moment. 20 seconds is the gap currently between Statistic King and Roon. Now, will Statistic King choose to pit in at the end of this lap? Go back to the battle. The second place of Roon continuing to pull away from Winfield gradually. But there are parts of the circuit where the frame is actually able to close in with those wet tyres. I'd say it's around about even Stevens between dries and wets now. Liverpool fan ahead of Vintage, who's gone off. Vintage has spun off onto the grass. Has he hit the wall and got damage? He's got damage to the right-hand side of his front wing, so that's possibly him going back into the pits. And Statistic King coming through. Does he pit in and go on to wets? I think he will do. Now, if I was Roon, I'd think very, very carefully about what you're going to do next. I think he's going to try and stay out for as long as he can. The DRS has now been disabled, so is that the time for Roon to make the switch onto wets? No, he decides to carry on. I'm not surprised, to be honest with you. So, Statistic King coming into the pits to put wet tyres on. And out he goes. He'll be behind Wild Dog and Redstone Derp. So, Wild Dog goes through. Where's Redstone Derp? There he is. So, Statistic King rejoins in 4th place now, behind Wild Dog. As it stands, the championship would still be wrapped up today at Spa. Killer J in the pits for High Tech. He also went on to dries when he came in. But he's in need of the wet tyres now. Now remember, the top 8 finishers get reversed for the sprint race grid. At the moment, that is occupied by Han, who's in 8th. but she's got a time penalty to her name as it stands. Vintage back in the pits as his Scouse Cookie. So the only driver still on dries now is Room. Winfield closing in behind. Now, how long is Room prepared to see this out before the tyres do very much start to go off? So Room's actually holding on really well here. Statistic King has now got past Wild Dog in at Stavelo and goes up into third place now. That title is edging ever closer for Statistic King. Here's Winfield, who's coming through the bus stop chicane now with Room, and Room does decide to pit this time. So he should have been on the wets earlier on, and I think maybe we would have seen him in the lead. We'll see how much time he can gain through all this. Room, the last of the drivers to come into the pits for wets. And out on his way. He'll fall behind Liverpool Fan. He'll be ahead of Mielios. And Winfield's now been given a time penalty for exceeding track limits. Now, he's over 6 seconds in front of Statistic King, but he won't want to make too many mistakes like that. Room rejoins in 6th place behind Liverpool Fan. Of course, now Liverpool Fan's been given a time penalty. Pushing too hard. Redstone Dirt having a good race so far in 4th place behind Wild Dog. There's Statistic King in 2nd and closing in on Winfield. Remember, his wet tyres are 2 laps fresher. There are more life left in those, given the time of which the rain has come down. He'll have better pace at this stage than Winfield. So we're on lap 9 out of 13. Winfield's lead is just over 6 seconds. Statistic King 2nd place, ahead of Wild Dog, Redstone Dirt, Liverpool Fan, and Room. Mielios is 7th, and Han in 8th place, and on reverse grid pole as it stands, although her time penalty of 8 seconds would drop her behind the Hound. So she's got with it all to do if it is to make it to reverse grid pole. Oh, she nearly lost it coming out of Bruxelles. She's pushing ever so hard to try and make up that 8-second gap. Pod just spun again in the Campos. And so he gets going again. Winfield crossing the line. It's been a convincing performance from the Prema driver. Doing all he can, but Statistic King is on the verge of wrapping up the F2 Championship in the Tier 2 category in the Formula Racing League. Room gets past Liverpool Fan, who goes into the pits. Has he had damage somewhere, I wonder? Yes, he has. He's got damage to his front wing. Mielios is also in. He's in for another set of wet tyres, and also to serve that penalty, I think, as well. That will be seeing him dropping down, and Han goes through. Han goes past as well. Mielios going through the last turn, or going through La Source, coming out of the pits, who joins in 9th. So the driver who occupies reverse grid pole, that would be Liverpool Fan. So Winfield's lead is now 7 seconds over Statistic King. Wild Dog's penalty would drop him behind Redstone Derp. The driver's coming through Blanchimont. The rain continuing to come down. Rune now getting a 3-second time penalty for exceeding track limits. Ooh, and Redstone Dirt will have got a warning for that. Won't want to be pushing too hard. And he's over 17 seconds clear of 5th place Rune. Who knows how much points are important. Double Fun 7th as the Hound goes off again. This time on the exit of the bus stop chicane. And that allows Mielios to go through. Up into 8th place. Although the Hound is still within 3 seconds behind the HWA driver. Which would see him on reverse grid pole for the sprint race a little bit later on. Whistle 6 is the only driver to have pulled out of this one. And Redstone Dirt getting good drive out of Puron to make a lunge down the inside of Wild Dog. Can't quite get the move completed. So into campus they come. Redstone Dirt clearly having more confidence in his dams than Wild Dog is in his campus. I think these two are going to go side by side here as Redstone Derp gets on the inside as they go through Blanchimont. And Redstone Derp is through. So Redstone Derp gets up into 3rd place ahead of the Campos on the road. And that is surely now. Oh, he gets a tap from the Campos though. I think he's got about just away with it, but that's going to allow the Campos an opportunity to go by. They go side by side on the pit straight. Before they go down to Eau Rouge, or up to Eau Rouge, not Eau Rouge, La Source. Then they go down to Eau Rouge. And they want to keep it clean, which I think they will do, as Wild Dog slots back in behind the dams. Minfield has exited the pits on another set of wet tyres. Now, what's all that about? To be fair, he did pit in early. And that hands the lead over to Statistic King. Now, I don't know what Statistic King's tyres are like, but he stayed out long. His tyres will be younger than a lot of the fields, actually. So that's probably why Winfield decided to pit in, because he felt that his tyres were going to basically hit the cliff. He's going to have better pace than Wild Dog and Redstone Derp. But surely he's not going to make up that much ground in 2 laps, is he? So Statistic King is on course for the feature race victory. He's timed his pit stops to perfection. And the Hound looks as though he's back in the pits. And is he calling it a day? Or is he going to go on to another set of the wet tyres? So Statistic King on course for victory, and there's a yellow flag. Is that Podge who's gone off at the bus stop chicane? It is. It's gone into the pit lane though. He's got a puncher as well. And Wild Dog gets ahead of Redstone Dirt now. Back up into second place on the road. These two have been fighting it out all race, to be honest with you. Winfield closing in behind. So Wild Dog doing everything he can to try and pull away from the dams. The rain continuing to come down on the Camel Straight anyway. And Winfield is closing in on these guys, albeit not enough. So here's Statisticking on his final lap now. On the brink of getting that championship trophy signed, sealed and delivered. And ALL Vintage getting ahead of Killer J up to 9th place. Look at Killer J's tyre. He's only been on those for 3 laps. Or 4 laps even. Now we've already had the Podge who's come in with a puncher. Now I think Statisticking will get to the end without his tyres delaminating, but I think even at this stage now he should keep hold of the lead. He's coming through the last few turns of the race. He deserved the victory, to be honest with you. He's timed his strategy to perfection. Through the bus stop chicane he comes, and Statisticking is going to take another victory, and with that, it's the F2 title in the Tier 2 category in the Formula Racing League. Statisticking, you can add yourself into that Hall of Fame. He wins the feature race at Spa. Wild Dog crosses the line second, but Redstone Dirt will go to second place with Wild Dog's time penalty applied. So he goes second, Wild Dog down to third. Winfield will be fourth, but at least he gets the fastest up points. Room will be fifth, ahead of Liverpool Fan, who will be sixth. And he will be seventh between Han and Mielios. At the moment, Mielios looks as though he's going to leapfrog Han in the final results to go up to 7th place, which means Han will drop down to 8th and onto reverse grid pole. So Liverpool Fan coming over the line in 6th place. Han is 7th ahead of Mielios. Killer J getting another time penalty for corner cutting. So Han down to 8th place and on reverse grid pole. Vintage is a disappointing 9th for ART. Scouse Cookie will be 10th and taking the final points from today's race. But it's victory at Spa and the championship clinched for Statisticking. He is the Tier 2 champion in F2 in the Formula Racing League. Congratulations to the Scots on tonight's success. And there is still a sprint race to come, so don't go anywhere, folks. So out onto the podium, drenched in champagne. They'll need those suits for the sprint race later. They don't want to get too wet, even though they may already be very wet in the rainy conditions. So final classification then. Statistic King is your race winner and the champion of the Tier 2 category of F2 in the Formula Racing League. Redstone Derb is second. Brilliant drive from 13th on the grid to get himself up there. Wild Dog third. Winfield in fourth and getting the fastest up points. Room fifth. Liverpool Fan in sixth. Miel Leos in seventh. Han in eighth and on reverse grid pole. Vintage is ninth. Scouse Cookie taking the final points in 10th place. The Hound is 11th, followed by Killer J. Lucky Boff is 13th, ahead of Podge, who was the last of the finishers. Rizzle 6, the only one to retire from the event. Well, Statistic King may be championed, but there's still a battle for second place in the championship, or so there was, because Winfield's result means that he's now clinched second ahead of Vintage. So we now know our top three in the championship, or top four. But at least Liverpool Fan can maybe try and go for fifth place ahead of Bus Fisher, who's not racing this evening. So it's going to be very much all fun and games, to be honest with you, in this last sprint race of the season. It is dry, so we should not expect to see any rain for this particular event. To round off the F2 season in the Formula Racing League. There'll be a 9-lap sprint race. Now, can those who are starting at the front find a way to get to the checkered flag as race winners? Redstone Dirt maybe fancies his chances. Wild Dog as well. And off they go on their formation lap. So Han's yet to win a race this season, as is Mielios. Liverpool Fan as well. Rune is one of the newbies, so he may fancy himself going for it. So we have 9-lap sprints here at Spa. No mandatory pit stop, so we do expect the drivers to be on mediums. The only driver on softs is actually Lucky Boff. He may try and go to the end of the race on those. He can do softs followed by softs if he wants to. He's going to find it very tricky to get to the checker flag while trying to get a high position by completing an undercut on drivers who are probably not going to be pitting in this race. The only way to resolve that would be a safety car. So Han leading the field round on the formation lap. It won't be too long before this race gets underway for the 20th and final time. Now for the Tier 1 category, they are having another round next week to determine who will become champion in that. Jack Berry commentating on that at the moment. They'll be doing their sprint race, as we are doing. So the drivers coming onto the grid now. And the driver's going off onto the grass there, and Vintage just trying to get round Podge, who's run wide also. Now we're just waiting for the last few to take up their positions on the grid. And then this 9-lap sprint race at Spa will begin. It's been a long season. Can we end it in a flourish? So the 5 red lights will come on. When they go out, we'll be racing at Spa for one last time. It's lights out and away we go. Han gets off the line well, as does Mielios, and I think Room fancies his chances of making his way up the order, as does Winfield. Winfield gets down the inside of him, makes contact, and Winfield spins round in the Prema, and he's got damage. And Han manages to keep hold of the lead, and it's Rune in second place, who goes side by side with Mielios down to Eau Rouge, and it's the Charoux who gets in front of the HWA. Then it's Wild Dog ahead of Redstone Dirt, Liverpool Fan, Statistic King, The Hound, Scouse Cookie, Podge, Killer J, Lucky Bob gets up to 12th. It's Real Sticks, Vintage, and a Prima of Winfield, who's at the back of the field. But Mielios goes side by side with the Charoux of Rune into Lecom. And I think the Charoux is going to fight it out and keep hold of second position. And we've got a spinner down at Lecom, and it's Rizzle Sticks, who's gone off onto the runoff area and falls behind Winfield. And Han's gone off. Han is off onto the runoff area. Now she's just got to be careful. Oh, and Statistic King nearly spun us damage. Bits of debris flying everywhere on the opening lap of this race. Podge tries to go through down the inside of Statistic King into Pouan. And Podge runs wide on the exit. And I think whoever's got damage through all that is going to need to take a trip into the pit lane. I think it's the Hound, actually, that has got damage on the right-hand side of his front wing. So he'll be the one making his way into the pit lane. We've got a change of lead with Rune in the lead. Then it's Redstone Dirt, followed by Mielios. But Mielios runs wide. He spins. Mielios runs wide. He hits the wall, damages his front wing. And he's got to be careful not to rejoin back onto the track. He is ghosted so that none of the field T-bones into the side of him. But either way, he's got going again. And we expect to see drivers heading into the pit lane at the end of this lap. Podge looking to get in front. He makes contact with the ART of Statistic King. And now the driver's completing lap 1 with the pecking order different to what it is on the leaderboards, what it is on track. And Redstone Dope trying to take the lead from Rune, but couldn't quite make the move stick. Got Wild Dog in, well, it says Wild Dog in third place, ahead of Liverpool Fan. No DRS for the first 2 laps. Oh, and Podge spins. It was into the wall. Podge has gone into the wall. Polystyrene blocks shattered into the air. And that'll be him making his way into the pit lane. Mielios goes past him. Even with that front wing damage. As does Lucky Boff, who is making some form of good start, actually. Despite starting on the soft compound. The Redstone Derp now into the lead, ahead of Rune. And we've got an instant set to 2 at Lecom. Rizzle Sticks has gone round again in the UNI Virtuosi. And Statistic King getting ahead of the Hound now, up into 6th place as Killer J tries to go through. But the 2 make contact. Killer J goes wide. There's enough space for him to get back onto the track safely ahead of the UNI Virtuosi. But the Hound tries to fight back, but can't do so and stays behind. And Rune looking to get past Redstone. Now this will be an interesting battle to watch between now and the end of the race. Winfield has spun again in the Prema. Don't think he's got damage this time. Gets away with it on this occasion. Numerous time penalties being dished out so far. Or so far, I should say. Podge is in the pits for a new front wing in the Campos. Go back to the battle for the lead here because Rune is determined to get in front of Redstone here. Rear wing open. And now are we going to see a change of lead here as they come into Lecom? Podge retires from the race. Broom can't quite get past the dams and slots back in behind. Liverpool Fan in third place ahead of Wild Dog, Sisters King, Killer J, the Hound. Drivers are pretty much spaced now, and Rizzlesticks has gone off at running on again. He's having a wretched race so far. But Redstone Derp continuing to lead, then it's Rune in second. In third place is Liverpool Fan. Rizzlesticks getting a time penalty as well for corner cutting. He's not liking Lacom at all, especially with that front wing damage of his. Redstone Derp has now got a time penalty of 3 seconds. That would drop him behind Rune come the end of the race, unless he can pull out a 3-second margin. And someone else has gone for a spin. Oh, we've got a coming together between Vintage and Scouse Cookie. It's at Fanya this time. Now, is that enough to bring out a virtual safety car with all that debris scattered everywhere in the runoff? Probably not. Now, Rune coming through into La Source. He'll be looking to get the job done on Redstone Derp as soon as he can. He wants to do it on the road, but he won't take too many risks at this stage. He's yet to win in the F2 category in the Formula Racing League. Be a nice way for him to end the season with a flourish here. The Hound still behind Mielios in the battle for 7th place. Lucky Boff also behind these two. And Scouse Cookie's out. He's stopped in the pits and he's out of the race. And I think Rizzlesticks will probably do the same, if I'm honest with you. And he does so. So 3 drivers exiting the race. That promotes Winfield up to 12th place. So we've got 12 cars running in this still. So the Hound's still behind Mielios. Lucky Boff in 9th place. The top 8 do score points in a Formula 2 sprint race. The Hound in the final points paying position. He is struggling to get with that front wing damage. Lucky Boff waiting for his opportunity to come. Is he going to have enough tyres at the end of this race? Remember, he started on the soft compound in comparison to those on the mediums. I'm not so sure whether those softs are going to actually last the whole distance. Perhaps if the safety car was to come out now, that would come to his rescue. This is him going around the outside of Wild Dog, and I look at that. I look at those clouds going over. Don't tell me we're going to get some rain again. Well, we had it before in the feature race. We could well have it again before this race is done. But we are on that 5. We've got 5 laps remaining here at Spa. And I think even if the rain was to come down now, I don't think it would be enough to entice any of the drivers to come in for wets. Rune into the slipstream. Well, say in the slipstream. He's got DRS now. Then he's got into the slipstream, but he's not going to be close enough to have a go on the inside as they go into Lacom. Lucky Boff in 9th place. Rear wing open. Looks to get by the UNI Virtuosi on this occasion. Can't quite do so from there, and so he slots back in again. Vintage's pit stop has dropped in behind Winfield as well. So Winfield coming back, making his way back through the field. Hound running wide. Bruxelles. Lucky Boss still behind him. Oh, the Hound can't quite do it there. Lucky Boss trying to get on the inside as they go through Pouan. And that's the Charouz driver through, and just as he did that, the Hound also went wide, but I think that move is legal. Lucky Boff did have the right to go down the inside. The Hound left enough room, but both drivers went off. And I think because both drivers went off, I think Lucky Buff will get away with that one. Struggling to get the car turned into Stavelo there, did the Charouz driver. Now, Roon going to the outside. New fastest lap as well. And now can he complete the switchback as they go down towards Eau Rouge? Roon will be in the slipstream, but he's going to be in that turbulent air, which might see him struggle to turn into Eau Rouge. You can see why. But he's still in the slipstream. Rear wing open on the Charouz. They're going to go side by side as they go down the Camel Straight, or up the Camel Straight. Laycom is next. And Roon goes into first place at the end. Can he get the car turned into Laycom? He can. And he's done it. So Roon takes the lead on the road ahead of Redstone Derp, who drops into second place. Statistic King behind Liverpool Fan as well. He's still got Wild Dog behind him actually as Statistic King. Lucky Buff looking to close in on the HWA of Mielios. And now it looks like the rain is returning. We've got just over 3 laps remaining. I think the leaders will try and go to the end, or if others may try and risk it out on wet tyres to try and make up the margin, but I don't think there's going to be enough time for that to happen. And Redstone Dirt nearly losing it as he caught the curb on the outside as him and Roon go down the start finish straight. Wild Dog gets in front of Statistic King, who goes into the pits. Now, is this for a change of change onto the wets? It's very early. The rain has only just started coming down. Perhaps with the cycle already sealed. He thought, why not? Or is he going to go onto a set of the softs? He's going onto a set of the soft compound. He'll rejoin ahead of Han. And Statistic King rejoins in 9th position and can go after the Hound, who's the next driver up front. I think Statistic King's going to struggle to set the fastest lap in these conditions now, but he'll give it a good try. And thought about going for it at Fanya, but Roon wasn't going to have any of that. And Winfield getting a time penalty now for exceeding track limits. And we've got an incident set to 2, is that Mielios, who's gone round in the HWA. It's got going again, but it's allowed Lucky Buff to close back in on the HWA. Oh, and Lucky Buff goes off. Lucky Buff is off into the gravel on the exit of campus, and that's going to allow surely the Hound to go through. And I think Lucky Buff's tyres have pretty much hit the cliff, if I'm honest with you. Will that be him going into the pits? There's no way he'll get to the end of the race on those now. Those tyres will be vibrating like hell. There's no way he can get to the end on those. Now, is he going to carry on? Or is he actually going to choose to come in, get those tyres changed? He's coming in to get those tyres changed. So going on to another set of softs, presumably. And Statistic King coming round to go past the Charoux and up into 8th place now. King through. He's surely going to be struggling now. The DRS has now been disabled. Now, if you're the leader, what do you do? I think if you're Rune and Redstone Derb, you've got to try and see it out now. Even if you have to tiptoe your way through. And we've got an instant sector 1. Is that Lucky Boff who's run off? It is. Winfield coming in as well. For Kramer, is this him going on to the wet tyres? And the answer is yes. Oh, Redstone Derb. Oh, he runs wide. Redstone Derb has gone wide, I think. Oh, and someone else has gone off. It's Vintage. Vintage has gone off on the exit of Radio. You can see the raindrops coming down on the circuit now. It's pretty visible. And probably the time for these to get wet tyres on. Unless Rune and Redstone Derb are brave enough to see out the race in these rainy conditions. Rune coming through the bus stop chicane. Lucky Boss struggling to get round. And Rune and Redstone stay out. Liverpool fan doing the same. What about Wild Dog? He's doing the same as well, as is Killer J. Now this is going to be a tasty last lap for these drivers. So Rune leads. Can he pull out? Well, I say pull out a 3-second gap. He doesn't actually need to. It would be Wedso Derp's job if he was leading the race. But he's making his way through Eau Rouge carefully now. Wild Dog with a time penalty to his name. It's King. Struggling on those soft tyres. It is the last lap. Oh, Redstone Derp's out. Redstone Derp has lost it on the exit of Lacom, I believe. He has. He's lost it. And he's out of the race on the last lap from 2nd place. We didn't see how he spun off. Now that sends a question, a message to the leader. Just take it very, very easily now. The rain is continuing to pour. And you'll have less and less and less grip to make do with. So Rune on course to take his first victory this season in the F2 category. Or the F2 series in the Tier 2 category in the Formula Racing League. Now he just needs to take it easy, as Liverpool fan is 11 seconds behind him. Doesn't need to take too many risks. From here. But he's coming through now. Into the bus stop chicane. He comes. And it's going to be Rune taking the sprint race victory, the final win of this season. He spun at the bus stop chicane, but he keeps the car pointing in the right direction. He's going to come through, and he's going to win the sprint race here at Spa. Rune takes the victory for Charoux. Liverpool fan will come home in 2nd place, with Wild Dog 3rd, Killer J in 4th position. Miel Leos should be 5th, as King tries to close in on the HWA, but I think he's going to run out of time to do that. So King will be in 6th. The Hound 7th with Han 8th. Winfield on the wet tyres. I don't think he's going to have enough time to close in on the Hound and Han, who struggled to get those cars through the bus stop chicane. But they're going to cross over the line now in 7th and 8th, picking up the last points. Winfield, don't think he's set the fastest lap, has he? No, he hasn't. It's gone to Roon, who's got those fastest lap points. Winfield will cross over the line in 9th place, 5 seconds off of getting a point. Lucky Buff will be in 10th, ahead of Vintage, who's had a dogged race, if I'm honest with you. He's had a dogged round overall. Lucky Buff struggling to get round. He's reset the car back onto the track as well. Not really supposed to be doing that, but we are at the end of the race now. He comes through to complete the top 10. Vintage will be the last driver home to round off an interesting day's work. So taking it very, very easy. So Vintage comes over the line 11th, but it's race victory for Roon here at Spa. So Giroux celebrates as Roon completes a day's work with some points and a sprint race victory to add to his points total. So final result then in the sprint race here at Spa. Roon is your race winner ahead of ahead of Liverpool fan in 2nd place. It's Wild Dog 3rd, Killer J 4th, Melios in 5th, Statistic King in 6th, ahead of the Hound. There's Han in 8th, Winfield in 9th, and Lucky Boff in 10th. There's Vintage 11th, the last of the finishes. Redstone Dirt crashed out on the last lap. Rizzle 6, Scouse Cookie, and Podge did not finish the race. So to wrap it up, Statistic King is the champion by a comfortable margin. We'll work out the championship tables post-race. But either way, he is the champion ahead of Winfield, who finishes runner-up, and Vintage in 3rd position, and Wild Dog in 4th. That's all from the Tier 2 category for F2 this season. It's been a compelling campaign, and who knows what next season could bring. We'll wrap it up there. Thank you for joining us. I'm Tom Cairns, and I'll speak to you again soon when the Formula Racing League returns.